Do you ever have that one movie where it's like, I don't think this is good, neither does anyone else, but I still like it? Well, you know what? I do, just like a lot of other people do. In fact, I've got 10 of them. And it's time to share them right now, my top 10 guilty pleasure movies of all time. Now, just a little disclaimer before we get started. I don't think any of these are necessarily good movies, but I enjoy them nonetheless. I mean, they have some problems. A lot of problems in some cases, and we will definitely get down to those. But these are ranked in order of enjoyment that I have from these, however flawed they may be. So, let's get started. Number 10, Click, an Adam Sandler classic? Mostly people just know about this movie because of how bad it was, and it was definitely one of those stepping stones to help Adam Sandler become unrespected in the movie scene. And yeah, this movie's absolutely garbage. It is garbage, garbage, garbage. The first 2/3 of this are just nothing but typical Adam Sandler lowbrow humor that's just crude, crass, and has no substance to it. But if I feel this negatively about Click, why is it even on this list in the first place? Remember how I said the first 2/3 were just Adam Sandler schlock? Well, later on, in the last third, it becomes an actually serious story. See, the whole movie's about this guy who gets a universal remote that's actually universal. It actually controls the universe. Well, he ends up misusing it, and it goes completely haywire, and it just destroys his future. And it's about him trying to cope with that and maybe even fix it. And it's actually a really compelling story. We actually get to see some depth and some actual personality traits of the Adam Sandler character. I know he has a name, but let's face it, it's just Adam Sandler. That's all there is to him. So this last third is actually enjoyable, it's gripping, and it's actually very investing. You actually get some kind of feels when you watch it at the very end. Granted, it all gets undone, but still, that last third is very good and very compelling. Why couldn't the rest of the film been like that? Why couldn't it have just started off with the crude, crass stuff, and then immediately go into the serious stuff? Because as we've seen from movies like Punch Drunk Love, Adam Sandler can be a very good dramatic actor. Sadly, that was not realized, and we got this. Sure, the Adam Sandler stuff is cringy to get through, but it's kind of worth it to get to that last third. Number 9, Batman and Robin, the film that almost killed Batman's cinematic adventures, until we got Batman Begins. Many years later. This was so hated at the time that, like I said, they were considering even stopping the Batman films. And they had another one in production with the Scarecrow as the main villain. And it sounded actually really good, but because this ended up doing so terribly, they decided to cancel it. Why is it that my favorite Batman villain, the Scarecrow, always gets shorted when it comes to movies? In the original line he was going to be put in, then they cancel him, and then they make him a bag-headed potato boy in Batman Begins. He just never can catch a break. Yes, this movie is cheesy, it's loud, it's colorful, it's goofy, it's everything a Batman film shouldn't be. But it's not everything a Batman TV show shouldn't be. Remember 1960s Batman starring Adam West and Burt Ward? Well, that's how I like to picture this film. I like to picture it as a big screen adaptation of the Caped Crusaders' 1960 adventures. Yeah, I know we already had a Batman 1960s movie, but I like this one better. Picture it right alongside Adam West and Burt Ward's adventures. George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell would be perfect to represent them. The tone is right there. There's also the dialogue that fits perfectly, the action scenes, the storylines, how goofy and overdramatically sappy and comedic it is. It fits right there, and it's such a blast to watch and laugh at. I actually think this film is objectively better than Batman Forever, not even in a guilty pleasure sense. Because at least with this film, it's so stupid and goofy, you know that it had a direction, and it knows where it wants to go. With Batman Forever, it tried to be everything. It tried to be serious, it tried to be campy, it tried to be surreal, it tried to be thought-provoking, it tried to be merchandise-heavy. It was such a jumbled mess that it appealed to no one, and it certainly didn't appeal to me. This, though, was just a non-stop 2-hour goofy amusement park ride. While it doesn't really add anything of substance to you, it certainly does give you a lot of fun. But yeah, this thing isn't perfect. But we already know all about that now, don't we? Number 8, Lion King 1.5. This is really the only direct-to-video Disney sequel that I actually like. There are others that are just okay, but this one I actually think is good-ish, kind of. Like I said, it's not really a good movie because it has no reason to exist. is just kind of there to slap in the face of The Lion King. Normally I would be more upset about this, but I don't really like The Lion King. It's okay in my eyes, but I can definitely understand that a lot of people would find this a slap in the face. Another issue is that a lot of the jokes are very hit and miss. There are some absolute nailing ones, but there's also some absolute duds. It's a very, very mixed bag, and it has no real reason to exist, but the good stuff that's there is there, and even some of the cringy stuff is kind of fun to cringe at. It's fun cringy rather than Adam Sandler cringy. And this is not for everyone. It's extremely mixed, and it's an extreme guilty pleasure. But you know what? That's why it's on the list. Next one. Number 7, Felix the Cat the Movie. Everything people have said about this movie is absolutely true. It's loud, it's annoying, it's insane, it's only there to be a ripoff of major big-budget adaptations of cartoons, and was definitely a very, very clear failure of a franchise. Because that's actually what this was. This was actually intended to be some kind of big revolution for Felix the Cat, bringing him back into the spotlight and help start a new franchise. And look how well that turned out. Yes, it's absolutely terrible, and it's all those things people say, but I love it. When it comes to a film that is just fun to make fun of, this is the second best one. I'll get to the other one later. The choices that this film makes is absolutely baffling, from the character designs, the color palettes, the story beats, the character names. I know Felix the Cat never really had central premise or recurring characters, save for maybe one or two, but this still feels like a complete fan fiction, I guess, or fever dream. I don't know what it feels like, but it feels like something that isn't Felix the Cat. But that's the fun with it. It's so baffling, and it's so confused, and it's so kind of arrogant in its stupidity that you just can't help but buckle up and watch the fireworks. And boy, there's a lot of those in here. And admittedly, a couple pieces of the score sound kind of nice. One or two of the character designs are clever. But with the sound mixing and the overall terrible plot, it's not a good film. But boy, is it a fun one. Number 6, 8 Crazy Nights. Adam Sandler strikes again. Adam Sandler's technically only animated film. I'm not really counting Hotel Transylvania. That's Mark-Andy Tartakovsky, or however you pronounce his name. Adam Sandler is Jewish, very obviously. And he wanted to make a Hanukkah film. Great. Hanukkah doesn't really get represented very much in film. At all. In fact, often when it does, it just gets lumped in with Christmas, which I'm sure the Jewish people are very happy about. So, cool, Adam Sandler's gonna do a Hanukkah film, and he doesn't even give it the reverence that it deserves. It's just another one of his Adam Sandler wacky cringe fests, where it's nothing but gross and stupid and loud and annoying. It's basically just an Adam Sandler film. It had no need to be animated at all. But every year, ever since my freshman year in high school, I've been coming back to this film, whether around Hanukkah or Christmas, just sometime in the winter. Because despite how much I absolutely, without a doubt, hate this film, it's captivating for some reason. I mean, the animation's really nice, although they do terrible things with it. Some of the songs are really good, and the instrumentals on all of them are really good. Adam Sandler sure can sing, except the ones with Whitey in them are pretty hard to listen to. And it does what Click does. It tries to take itself seriously, but unlike Click, it doesn't just shove it all into the last third. It tries to do it all throughout, but I think it actually does it worse than Click. Because what it does is it tries to chop it in and scatter it around throughout the rest of the story. So 1 minute it's heartwarming, and then the next minute it's gross, and the next minute it's heartwarming, and the next minute it's stupid. It's stuff like that. But it's such a captivating train wreck. I don't find any of this funny. I don't think I laughed at it once. It's absolutely just Adam Sandler, and I don't like Adam Sandler, except for maybe one or two of his movies. But there's something so baffling about it, and so intriguing. Because there's a good film in here trying to break out, but it's not really there, but I can't help it. It's so enjoyable. This one's the hardest one to explain because I don't even know why I like it, so I'm not going to go around in a circle. I'm just going to keep on moving. Number 5, Nixon. There have been a lot of presidential biopic movies. And very, very few of them have got it right. The only one on the top of my head that I can think that actually did an accurate and entertaining job was Lincoln. Because if you know me, you know I am obsessed with political history. Any election, any president, I know every single thing about them. So I know a lot about Richard Milhous Nixon, one of the most controversial presidents we've had in recent times. And what a lot of people don't know about him is that he's actually kind of a sympathetic figure. Yes, Watergate was terrible. However, as we have seen Nixon later on, we kind of see that, yeah, well, there was a little bit of malicious behavior to him. It was more just outright paranoia. I don't really blame him as a malicious person. I blame him as a paranoid, almost maybe even ill person. Throughout his whole life, Nixon's had trust issues and has been extremely paranoid about a lot of things. I don't think he was mentally well, and neither do a lot of other historians. He only really did Watergate out of necessity, in his mind. Granted, that does not at all justify it. Oh, far from it. But it just shows that it wasn't really malicious behavior like what a lot of people believe. And a lot of people don't really remember this, but Nixon's first term was actually really successful. He revitalized a lot of government branches that Lyndon Johnson kind of neglected. He got us out of Vietnam for a while until Ford helped South Vietnam crumble. I mean, there was that. He also created the Environmental Protection Agency, helped us get into trade with China, which, yes, today has gone kind of wrong, but at the time it really helped jumpstart our economy. Nixon did a lot of good, but sadly because of Watergate, we don't really remember that. I mean, think about it. If Nixon was really a terrible president like we remember him to be, how come he defeated George McGovern, winning 49 states to his 1? And no, McGovern was not a good candidate either, but still, being a sucky candidate isn't just going to let you win only one state in the District of Columbia. What's the point of all this? Well, everything I just told you about Nixon's success, Nixon's thought process, his potential illness, it's all thrown out the window here. The makers of this film just wanted to perpetuate the stereotype that Nixon was some kind of troll under the bridge who only sought to do terrible, horrible, evil things to the people of this country. And that's not accurate. That's not what happened. But why do I still enjoy this film? Because even though this is far, far, far from accurate, it still tells a very compelling story. The story it does tell of this kind of wicked president who has probably some delusions is actually a very interesting one. It draws you in. While not true, really, and it has some truth to it, but not that much. It wraps you up and it's investing, and the acting is good, the cinematography is good. Had it stuck a little closer to truth, it actually probably would have been one of my favorite films of all time. So it's very mixed here. I don't acknowledge anything about its historical accuracy because it doesn't have too much of it, but as a film itself, it's very competent. So if I could just swallow my urge to correct everything, I could sit down and enjoy this. But because it's so broken and so flawed, I have to put it on the guilty pleasures list. Number 4, Canadian Bacon. I can't stand Michael Moore. I think he's just a walking hot air balloon, being that he's just full of hot air. Some of his documentaries are alright, but lately especially, they've been getting very politically charged and use anecdotal evidence to support his claims, and they just kind of seem like Al Gore's movies. Yes, movies. An Inconvenient Truth had a sequel. I'm so happy. Now this film is a lot like the Nixon film. It's very, very mixed because it's actually 2 films in one. It's a film that it pretends to be one thing, but it's actually something else. And what the film pretends to be is actually really fun. See, John Candy, one of my favorite actors, God rest his soul, is this one American nutjob guy who thinks that Canada is going to invade the United States because they have all their people on their border, because, you know, a lot of the border provinces have most of the people. And so he and a couple of his nutjob buddies go over to Canada and try to stop them from taking over, even though they have no idea what they're doing. It's full of a bunch of Canadian jokes and American jokes, and most of them really hit it. However, that's not what this film really is. It's really just Michael Moore boasting about how great Canada is, and how wonderfully it's run, and how America is just a dump. I love America, of course. I'm a devout patriot. I love my nation, and I wouldn't rather live anywhere else. So it's not really great to see this. How do I know that it's not just me being oversensitive? Well, for one, that's what the movies kind of build as. Second, they're not jokes when they talk about how good Canada is. It's just outright like saying it. Like there's one scene at the end where they're like, "Oh, let's leave this nightmare place," and it's this beautiful, wonderful oasis-looking place, and then they look over to this basically sewer, and they're like, "Now that's home. That's the greatest country in the world." It's a bunch of stuff like that. It's very clear that Michael Moore is trying to send us some kind of message all throughout this movie. Every time it looks like they're actually about to commit and be a movie, it turns into this, and I don't like it. But the good stuff that is there is just so funny. I don't want to ruin a lot of the jokes, but I will give one away. There's a bunch of jokes about how Canadians are nice, of course, as we all know. So they have this semi-truck they're driving, and on one side there's just all this stuff that they sprayed on. They're like, "Down with Canada, Canada sucks, go home, hosers," and like all this stuff. They get pulled over by a Mountie, and they're like, "Hey, what's the trouble there, eh?" And then they look at their graffiti on there, and they're like, "Oh, no, some kids must have drawn that, that wasn't us." And then the Mountie's like, "Oh yeah, that's all fine, but you know, here in Canada, you have to have signs that are written in both English and in French." So then the cop gives them a spray can, and then they have to go on the other side of their truck and then write the graffiti in French, and then they just get let off. It's stuff like that. There's some really funny stuff here. But dang it, Michael Moore, couldn't you just shut up for once? Again, another mixed bag, and, you know, admittedly the Michael Moore political talk is kind of fun to laugh at because of how uninformed it seems, at least to someone with my views. Who knows, maybe you guys would like it too. For me, it's fun to laugh at legitimately, and fun to laugh at ironically. Number 3, Fat Albert. One of the cringiest films I've seen in a long time, because it's so 2000s. It's so 2000s. Especially with Al and his friends watching all those MTV specials, Fat Albert rapping, just nothing but 2000s cheese, laying it on thick. I don't think all of Wisconsin can hold enough cheese. But it's so fun. It's so fun and funny. Admittedly, they did do the whole coming into the real life cartoon thing before a lot of other people started doing it. So a lot of the jokes, while basic, are still kind of decent. And I actually do really like the heart that's in here, legitimately. It's kind of clumsily written, and it's not a very good adaptation of Fat Albert, despite the fact Cosby helped write this thing. But it's still got some good poignant moments. And actually Albert's struggle of, maybe I don't want to go back on the TV even though I'm gonna probably die out here, is actually a pretty nice one. It's just too bad that all that mid-2000s cheese and cringy references have to come in here. It's so weird, it's like two movies stapled together. I mentioned this before, so I won't go too deep into it, but every time it looks like they're about to commit to doing like a serious moment or actually take the film in a solid direction, they do some kind of cringy rap number or some kind of dance thing or some outdated pop culture reference. A lot of people weren't captivated by it at the time, and they certainly are not now. I don't know, I just think it's too fun to hate. Like I said, I've talked about it before, so next one. Number 2, North. Oh, North. This is the best, so bad it's good movie I have ever seen. Because yes, this film is racist, it's childish, it has no logic to it. There's no sense of pacing, there's no sense of characters, there's no sense of anything. It's just kind of meandering about saying a bunch of racist jokes and making fun of a bunch of other cultures. But it's so funny. Especially with how clumsy their racism is. Like, racism is not a good thing. Absolutely not. Not at all. But, you know those times when someone around you says something racist, but it's so stupid you can't help but just laugh at them? That's this movie. I doubt Rob Reiner or Elijah Wood or any of the people involved were actually really racist, but, you know, this was just hilarious. Especially because of all the lame jokes they say, like the, Hawaii does not use the letters B, C, D, or F, so here you're pretty much guaranteed straight A's. It's just a bunch of that. And it's nonsense. It's nonsense. And it just builds on how ridiculous it is. And I know Rob Reiner's tried to defend this film saying, oh, it's all in a child's imagination. But you know what? No, this is just, it's just stupid. And it's just hilarious how inept this film is, not even just with storytelling, but with filmmaking. They try to make it kind of a half Roald Dahl-esque world where there's weird stuff going on in the background, but then they also try to make it some kind of legitimate played straight world. I don't know. It's like if the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory film knew even less about how to adapt a Roald Dahl thing. Which is funny, because this isn't actually a Roald Dahl book. But it was a guy with very similar style to Roald Dahl. Matt and I have already talked about this before on our now defunct Cinema Surgeons channel, but oh my gosh, this is hilarious. Whenever I got a friend over and they haven't seen it, I always urge them to watch it. And they laugh every time because of how broken and inept this film is. It's terrible in every way, but I love it, love it, love it. Now let's get on to number one. There was no doubt that this was going to be number one from the moment I saw this. I saw it over Christmas break recently, and I've been captivated with this film ever since. Well, it's not necessarily broken, but it's the most baffling movie I have ever seen. Yes, even more than North. What is it? Popeye. Robin Williams' first starring role in one of the biggest box office bombs of that decade. Yes, Popeye. What's so wrong with Popeye? Especially starring Robin Williams, who seems like he'd be great as Popeye. Which, yes, Robin Williams is a fantastic Popeye. And Shelley Duvall, while not really able to sing as Olive Oyl very well, she does make a pretty good Olive Oyl when she's not singing. Wait, singing? That's right. Popeye is a musical. Yes, you heard it right there. There's a Popeye musical movie. And how are the songs? The songs... they're songs. I mean, like, even some of the good ones, they're all simplistic. Like the song I Mean, basically the lyrics are just, I mean, you know what I mean what I say. Basically that's the whole lyric, except for maybe one or two changes. There's a song, He's Large, which is basically just that over and over again. Popeye has a song where it's, I am what I am, what I am, what I am, what I am. They're so simplistic, and it's not really well thought out, and that's not even the weirdest part. The weirdest part is that they try to turn this weird, clearly late 70s / early 80s live action musical based off of the Popeye cartoon / comics into a 1930s style live action cartoon. They do the things where, of course, Popeye has to twist up his arm, make the tornado punch, eat the spinach, rock'em sock'em, throw the monster. But they also do things where they just kind of talk. Because one thing, if you've ever seen the old Popeye cartoons, there is never a quiet moment. Now, I'm not talking about music. I'm talking about Bluto, Popeye, Olive Oyl. They always kind of talk like this in the background. They're always just kind of doing this. Like, there's always this, and now they have an actual line. And then they're going on like this, and they're doing this, like that. They do that. They do this in the film. All the time. They do a bunch of those cartoony jokes where they turn into one thing to symbolize something. It's hard to explain. They just basically try to make a live-action cartoon. And it's also a musical. And it's campy on purpose, but then it also tries to take itself seriously. And this movie's so weird. And I mean it, it's so weird. But I love it. Like 8 Crazy Nights, it's so captivating. But, like, I don't really know what they were trying for, except, well, I kind of do. See, Little Orphan Annie was a comic strip, of course, and they were bidding really hard to make this. The studio was, Paramount. And they lost the rights to Annie, so they're thinking, what other popular cartoon comic character needs a film? Popeye. And so they made a Popeye musical to cash in on Annie. And it kind of shows, because this kind of has the same kind of tone and style of it, even though they try to make it a live-action drama, comedy, cartoon, musical thing with Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall. The plot is just all over the place, too. Like, it's about Popeye trying to find his dad, the town trying to find out who the mysterious Commodore is, the guy who runs the town, Popeye trying to help Olive Oyl's family get their house back after they're getting taxed into oblivion, Popeye and Olive Oyl taking care of the baby is supposedly being able to predict the future, Bluto trying to hunt down Popeye and take Olive Oyl. It's everything. It does everything. And because of that, a lot of things don't get much focus. But again, it's just fun. Plus the set design and costuming, I gotta say, is fantastic. And yes, as I said, the casting for Popeye, Olive Oyl, Bluto, Wimpy, they're all great. So this film is just indescribably weird, and if you're going to watch any of these films, watch Popeye. It's certainly not for everyone. Absolutely not. You just have to be a special kind of person in a special kind of mood to watch a special kind of weird. So folks, those were my top 10 guilty pleasure films. Tune in 2 weeks for the top 10 films that everybody loves that I hate. Alright, good night everybody!